Okay, Algebra 1 fans, our topic for today, this is the first section of Chapter 8. It's called Adding and Subtracting Polynomials. Before we start, let me give you your joke of the day. Do you want to hear a joke about paper? Nah, it's terrible. Terrible. Rip. Tear. Okay, we're going to start with a little bit of vocabulary, and the first term here is monomial, which we've already talked about. Mono just means one. And so a monomial just means one term. And a monomial, it's an expression that's either a real number, I'll use a little number sign there, it's a real number, a variable, or a product of a real number and one or more variables. So it could be a number like 3, could be an expression like 1/2 x squared y to the 4th. That's just one term right there. -4z to the 2nd. Okay, so all of these are examples of monomials. They're each one term. Now, polynomial, poly means many. So a polynomial is a monomial, so it could be one term, or a sum or difference of monomials. Okay, so if suddenly we say 3x plus 2y, that's two terms, and that has a special name. It's called a binomial. If we have 17x squared plus 3xy plus y squared, 1, 2. Now we have three terms. That is a trinomial. And it can keep going from there. But also if we say, let's say 2x minus 7. Okay, so it's addition or subtraction. That would be a polynomial. And even if you just take x to the 7th, one term can still technically be a polynomial. Okay, so poly just means many. Now, we're going to talk about adding and subtracting. And the main idea, and this is something you've already learned, you have to combine like terms. To add or subtract, to be able to add or subtract, they have to be the same term. So we'll start with addition. Directions, add the following polynomials. Number 1, so we have a binomial, 2x squared minus, that's a 1x, plus, parentheses, 5x squared plus 3x. Now, the first thing I'm going to do here is rewrite this without the parentheses. And since we're dealing with addition, I'm basically copying my expression. So 2x squared minus 1x plus 5x squared plus 3x. So now we're going to add or subtract, but only if we have like terms. Well, a like term means, so we'll write down here, like term means the same variables and exponents. Same variables and exponents. You'll notice that, okay, put that over there, same variables, exponents. You'll notice that each of these terms has an x, but some of them have x squared, some of them only have x to the 1st. Those are not all like terms. Now 2x squared plus 5x squared, those are like terms, and so we're going to add these. Now, when you do this, you add or subtract the coefficients, the numbers in front. You do not add the exponents. We do not combine the exponents. 2 plus 5, we get 7x squared. Okay, so you're going to have to be careful here because we just dealt with how you multiply. When you multiply variables, you do add the exponents. But when you're adding and subtracting, that stays the same. And then we also have, I'll use a different color here, minus 1x plus 3x. And that, minus 1 plus 3 is positive 2, so we write it as plus 2x. I can't forget the variable, and if there were exponents, I have to write that as well. This is done. We cannot combine that anymore. An x squared and an x to the 1st are not like terms. All right, so let's take number 2. First thing I'm going to do is drop the parentheses. So I'm basically just copying this. And you may ask yourself, can't I just combine my like terms from the original problem? And the answer to that is yes. So if you wanted to do it from here, you could. However, I like writing it without parentheses. To me, it's less confusing. So we have 9m squared plus 2m squared. So that's 11. M squared stays like it is. I just copy the variable and the exponent. Then we have plus 16m plus 3m. Now, you can use, I like using different colors. That would be 16 plus 3 is positive 19m. But you can also use different shapes. For example, I can say minus 3, minus 1. Those are constants. Those are like terms. So negative 3 subtract 1 is minus 4. That is as far as you can go. We cannot add or subtract anymore. So that is the answer. All right, now we have a long problem. We can make this very long, but the nice thing is that it doesn't matter how long the problem is, it doesn't change the process. Okay, so we're adding all these up, so I'm going to rewrite this without parentheses, and now we're going to look for like terms. Now as I go through this, usually I like to use the biggest exponent first. So even though we start with 2x squared, notice that we do have an x to the third term. So I'm going to take positive 6x to the third. We also have 9x to the third. I'm going to add those first. So we get 6 plus 9 is 15. 15x to the third. Now let's do the x squareds. 2x squared, that's a positive 1x squared. 2 plus 1 is 3. So plus 3x squared. Now we have an x term. We have minus 11x. Notice that I circle the sign with the number. I circle the sign in front because it reminds me if it's positive or negative. That is negative 11x plus 8x. Negative 11 plus 8 is minus 3. And remember that that is an x term, minus 3x. And then the last one here, we have positive 7 minus 7. Well, 7 minus 7 is 0. Now you could put plus 0 here, but when you add 0, you get the same thing back. So we can just stop, and that is the solution. That's as far as we go. 15x to the third plus 3x squared minus 3x. All right, so let's come down here to subtraction. Subtraction is also going to be fairly quick. Same thing, combine like terms, but there's going to be one extra thing you have to be aware of. So we have 2x squared minus 3, in parentheses, minus 5x squared minus 9. Now the thing is, we're subtracting both of these terms here. So when I rewrite this, the first parentheses, the first binomial is just 2x squared minus 3. I copy that. Think of this as a minus 1. I'm going to put a 1 here. When you have a number next to parentheses, we have to distribute that value. So I'm going to take minus 1 and distribute throughout these parentheses. Now, a negative 1 times a positive 5 becomes minus 5x squared, but it's also negative 1 times negative 9. A negative times a negative is a positive. This is where people make that's the most common mistake, is they forget, yes, I changed this to a negative, but I also have to change the other term. Negative times a negative becomes a positive. So you have to distribute the minus sign. Now that the parentheses are gone, let's combine like terms. So we have 2x squared minus 5x squared. 2 minus 5 is negative 3x squared. And then we have negative 3 plus 9, which is positive 6. So I write plus 6. Those are not like terms, so we're done. Let's take 15. Again, I'm going to distribute my minus 1. I'm going to do that first. Again, can you do this in your head? Yeah, you probably can. But what you're going to find is that the more that you write it out, the less likely you are to make mistakes. So that becomes negative 4x squared. Negative 1 times negative 2x becomes positive 2x. Negative 1 times negative 1 is 1. The other thing you have to remind yourself here is that we are multiplying this. Negative 1 times negative 1 is not negative 2. Okay? Negative 1 times negative 1 is just 1. All right, now let's go ahead and combine like terms. 11x squared minus 4x squared equals 7x squared. Negative 5x plus 2x is negative 3x minus 3x. And then we have plus 1, which is, now I can add those, that's 2. And that's as far as we go. Okay, so let's flip it on to the back, and we've got 2 more problems here. So let's come here, I got an extra sheet. Number 6, what is the perimeter of the following triangle? Okay, here's a triangle. Notice we have 3 sides. The key word here is perimeter. And perimeter is the distance around an object. So in other words, we add up all the sides. So I'm going to say P, capital P for perimeter equals, well, we're going to take our 3 terms here, our 3 sides, and we're going to add them up. Again, you could do this from the picture. If you look at the like terms here, 1x, 10x, 7x, you can get your answer from there. I am going to write it 1x plus 13 plus 10x minus 5 plus 7x plus 4, and now I'm going to combine like terms. So perimeter equals, that is a 1x plus 10x, so that's, and plus 7x. I don't want to forget that. 1 plus 10 plus 7, 18x. And then we have the constants, positive 13. That is a negative 5 minus 5 plus 4. 13 minus 5 is 8. 8 plus 4 is 12. So that's plus 12. So we get 18x, and we get plus 12, and that is the perimeter. And now one more problem here, number 7. If the perimeter of the triangle is 43x plus 8, what is the missing length? So again, we're dealing with this word perimeter, but this time they're actually telling us the total distance around. They're telling us this value, but we're missing this side. Now, I'm going to give this side a variable name. I'm not going to use x though, because we already are using x. I'm going to pick a different value for this. Let me call this y. Now I'm going to set up the perimeter formula. We know that P, which this time is 43x plus 8. P equals, and you add up the sides. Well, y plus 23x minus 2 plus 14x minus 7. Okay, now we're going to solve an equation here, and let's see, we've got like terms on this side, plus 23x plus 14x. So I'm going to just copy the y, 37x, and this is going to be minus 9. Now we're solving for the missing side, so we need to move everything else to the other side. The y is on the right side, so let's move 37x to the left. We'll go minus 37x. And we're going to move negative 9. We'll add that to both sides. And if you calculate this, 43x minus 37x, you get 6x. 8 plus 9 is 17, equals y. That's the missing side, the missing length. And that is the answer. Now, if you want to check it, what we'll do, instead of y, I can replace this with 6x plus 17. And if I do the perimeter, 6 plus 23 plus 14 is 43x. And then 17 minus 2 minus 7 is plus 8. And that's the answer, and that is the end of the notes.